Welcome to the Liquor License Act Clarification Crash Course Micro-Credential. And yes, I made that up right on the spot. My name is Brian Lass, and certainly, arguably, maybe not arguably, out of the most common offenses under the LLA, as you'll come to know it as, that really any enforcement officer will endeavor to investigate someone for, plausibly is going to be this one you're staring at on your screen right now, Section 31, Subsection 2, unlawful possession or consumption. So, in a more civilian context, perhaps this caveat of offenses known as drinking in public, or, to be a little bit more specific from the officer standpoint, no, it's either have or consume liquor in other than a licensed premises, residence, or private place. As you can see, listed as such under the caveats there, the respective paragraphs. And again, as prefaced by the short form wordings here, but this certainly, brings guys to a very relevant question. Well, what exactly does the LLA mean by that of what's referred to as a residence, a licensed premises, or a private place? Because, of course, we have to appreciate the LLA is an enabling statute, and in utilizing such language under an enabling statute, certain words may stand to mean certain things under that statute. And it is that definition of residence that I want to drill down for the purpose of the next few minutes, being that seemingly it is the case that this definition is causing a lot of confusion, and especially when we start to utilize this, residence preface, if you will, in a multi-dwelling environment. So certainly, this lends to the idea that further to understanding the LLA unto itself, of course, it's important to remember which parts of a multi-dwelling building are applicable to which parts of the LLA. So, that being said, wouldn't you know it, Section 31 Sub 1, really the preamble, if you will, to Section 31 Sub 2, the offenses itself, does tell us specifically what is meant by residence, as you can see on your screen right now. So, quite simply, in this section, residence means a place that is actually occupied and used as a dwelling, so pretty self-explanatory, whether or not in common with other persons, and I've bolded and underlined here for a very relevant reason, including all premises used in conjunction with the place to which the general public is not invited or permitted access. And I want to stop right there, being that we're talking about this multi-dwelling environment, such as an apartment building, and it's by no happenstance that I have a picture as for such example of a lobby, because again, when we examine that definition of residence, wouldn't you know it, the LLA permits drinking in what we can otherwise refer to as the common areas of an apartment building or a multi-dwelling, building, as for such example. So certainly the lobby, as we can see it here, would be one of those. The hallways on each floor, the stairwells, even the underground parking garage. The best way to think about this, really, if you are on the other side of a door that you would otherwise have to access by way of, let's say, using a fob or a key or being buzzed in, we are now, on this premises used in conjunction with these dwellings. And certainly the general public is not invited or permitted access in the sense that, this is not like a shopping mall where people can come and go as they want. You either need a key fob or perhaps to have to be buzzed in. So this could even include potentially, if it's on the other side of one of these access doors, even a courtyard. Yes, it may be outside, but it's still within this definition of residence. So this leads us perhaps to a little bit of trivia here, still on the topic. And as for such example, let's say we're still going with the notion of this lobby, a common area, but now we have this signage specifically stating no alcoholic beverages. But wouldn't you know it, Brian Lass, in true Brian Lass fashion, perhaps on, wouldn't you know it, was last year on All Hallows Eve, I suppose, the defendant Tara Bull, yes, Tara Bull, ladies and gentlemen, I've issued this ticket for having open liquor in other than licensed premises, residence, or private place. Now, we have to stop and scratch our head for a moment because, again, this is a common area. We've already looked at the definition of residence. The LLA permits drinking in a common area, but now we have this signage. So does that mean all of a sudden we can sort of reenact the LLA for the purposes of our investigation? Well, let's examine this one more time. Again, we've already looked at this idea of what the offense is under Section 31, Subsection 2. This is within the realm of what would be defined as a residence. We've already talked about it. And again, it's still the sentiment, the sentiment remains the same. The LLA permits drinking in the lobby, so certainly I would have, or we, or, the prosecutor would have no reasonable prospect of conviction. That signage is, neither here nor there when it comes to the LLA. So, what would have been the appropriate charge in this regard? Well, again, it would be engage in prohibited activity on premises, trespass to Property Act, Section 2, Sub 1, Paragraph A, Clause 2. And why is that the case? Well, certainly that signage does equate to proper notice as prescribed under the TPA, certainly Section 5, Sub 1, Paragraph B, talking about signage unto itself as a form of giving notice of what is considered a prohibited activity on the premises in that regard. And as well, Section 6 talks about form of signage, and absolutely this sign that we could see here, that red circle with the line through it and the wording as well, is going to be sufficient for a proper form of signage. Now, with that being said, certainly don't forget, as a separate sort of caveat, there is still a plausibility to have an LLA offense in one of these common areas if we are in the realm of perhaps investigating someone for intoxication, or i.e. public intox, being, as you can see here, 31 sub 4 talks about, no person shall be in an intoxicated condition in a place to which the general public is invited or permitted access. Pretty self-explanatory. But again, in dealing with this landscape we've been talking about, the definition of residence, here it gets a little bit different, because it does state in any part of a residence that is used in common by persons occupying more than one dwelling in the residence. So someone can be investigated for intoxication under the LLA in one of these common areas. But again, as far as the actual drinking or having open liquor, that of course is off bound, so to speak. And again, those are the two caveats. Being intoxicated is certainly in a common area would be the more applicable short form wording should we be in one of these, common areas of a multi-dwelling building. And for the purposes of this video, that brings us certainly to our ending point. I thank you for obliging me, and I hope that this certain has provided you, a better firm understanding and put everything into context in regard to this landscape of the definition of residence in a multi-dwelling building. So I thank you so very kindly for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.